The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
One of the great individuals in the town of Brisk was a fellow by the name of Rabbi Yisrael Nissan. And this Rabbi Yisrael, besides being a great Talmid Chacham, a great Torah scholar, was also wealthy and an unbelievable supporter of the community. Unfortunately, as sometimes happens, his mazel turned sour, and this Rabbi Yisrael lost all of his fortune, and he was down to bare bones. But he felt that if he could have the capital, if he had some money, he'd be able to invest in business again. He was a successful businessman, and reclaim his former wealth, and once again be able to be generous and a supporter to the community and to the poor. So he sold the possessions he was able to, that left him with a sum. Half he gave to his family to hold them over while he leaves, and the other half he took to go travel, to go meet the famous Baron Rothschild in England. And his hopes were riding that if he could just meet Baron Rothschild, if he could just tell him what the situation is, he could perhaps get a generous donation and be able to rebuild his business. And he travels, and months it takes to get to England, and he finally goes, and he is so hopeful this could be it, this could be his point to turn around. And he goes to the office that he's instructed that everyone who wants a donation needs to go to. And he shows up at the office, and in a moment his heart sinks because he realizes there's no Baron Rothschild in this office. It's just the secretary handing out standard envelopes with standard donations. And at that moment, when he realized all the months and all the sacrifice to get there, all that hope was dashed. This great Rabbi Yisrael, sitting there in the waiting room, just burst out crying. And the secretary looked up, and he saw this distinguished fellow weeping. And the secretary said, "What's the matter?" And Rabbi Yisrael said, "No, I was really, really hoping to meet Baron Rothschild. I'm really depending on this." And Rabbi Yisrael says the story, and the secretary says, "Listen, let me give you some advice. On Friday, Baron Rothschild comes to this office to check up on what happened during the week. Be here on Friday, and I will try and make sure that you have a conversation." And sure enough, Rabbi Yisrael came back on Friday, and Baron Rothschild showed up, and the secretary made sure that Rabbi Yisrael was able to say hello and have a conversation. And Rabbi Yisrael began to talk to Baron Rothschild. Baron Rothschild was very, very impressed with Rabbi Yisrael and his Torah and his wisdom and his whole mannerism. And he said, "Rabbi Yisrael, do me a favor. Come to me for Shabbos." Rabbi Yisrael spent Shabbos with Baron Rothschild. A delightful, fantastic Shabbos. At the end of Shabbos, after Shabbos was finished, Baron Rothschild turned to Rabbi Yisrael and said, "Yisrael, tell me, how much were you worth before your luck turned?" Rabbi Yisrael thought for a little bit, and he said a number. Baron Rothschild walked into the other room and came back with a check for the total amount that Rabbi Yisrael used to have. And Baron Rothschild gave it to Rabbi Yisrael, and he said, "This is a gift, not a loan." Rabbi Yisrael was overwhelmed. Such generosity. What? He was searching for the words to say thank you. And as he's searching for how to say thank you, Baron Rothschild hands him another paper. And this paper says Baron Rothschild's address on it. And Rabbi Yisrael was confused for a moment. Why does he need his address? Send him a letter of thanks? Baron Rothschild turns to Rabbi Yisrael and says, Rabbi Yisrael, I see you are a wonderful person. And I see you are a wise person. And I hope that with the money I gave you, you will be able to go back and build a beautiful business. He said, but bad mazel is what destroyed your business in the past. I hope that you've shaken it. He said, but I can't be certain. Perhaps you will try your hand at business again, and that bad mazel will still be hovering over you, and your business will fail again. If that should happen, Rabbi Yisrael, I don't want you to trouble yourself to have to travel all the way here again to get more money. That's my address. Send me a letter saying what happened, and I will gladly send you another check to give you another chance to rebuild your business. An astonishing story of the generosity of Baron Rothschild. But Reb Meilech Biederman goes on to say so beautifully, this generosity is the generosity of Pesach. That Hashem came the first time. And there we were, a broken nation. The business failed. We had nothing left. And Hashem, in His everlasting mercy and love for us, and His recognition that we are His children, and in our heart of hearts, in our essence, our soul, we are great and we're filled with potential. And Hashem said, you're my kids, I'm taking you out. I'm going to build you back up. I'm going to bring you to Sinai. I'm going to grant you freedom. I'm going to unlock your heart and your soul. That was 3,500 years ago. And then Hashem gave us His address. And He said, come back every Pesach. Every time the business fails. Every time you get stuck. Every time you find a brick wall that you can't get through. Come back every Pesach, and I will write you that check again. I will write you another check for freedom. I will put you back on your feet again on Pesach and at the holy, glorious Seder night. This is Pesach, my friends. Show up at the Seder to get your check from Hashem. Show up to get your freedom.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org